Good morning.
Good
to
morning.
Awakenings Within. How are we today?
We is awake.
We almost didn't
How
make
is
it to the
yet to be
show.
determined.
Hey, good morning, Larry. Good morning, Heather. How are we? Oh, so Mug's up. Oh, this is one of these days.
You were made for this. Okay.
And then the inside it says believe in yourself.
Wow.
Ooh, that's one of them days.
Okay.
So
I'm believing.
Yeah. So this morning I turned on the news.
Yeah.
And then
That's
I turned on the real
these days
of Orange County because it was less drama. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, turning it off. Real Housewives, where are you?
It sort of feels like that, you know. It sort of feels like we're living in the middle of a giant soap opera.
That's what I said. Hi,
Yeah.
hey, Mark. It's a long time
I'm
no
agreeing
see.
with you. It's like we're, there's just so much drama, you know.
Yes, that's why I said, the Real Housewives seem a little less drama today. I think I'm just gonna turn it on. I was like, oh, I mean,
that's a pretty wild statement, right? What you're saying. I mean, think that through for a minute. When does television drama end up becoming
television reality show that's kind of staged a little bit?
Yeah.
Come on, those ladies can't be like that, really. Come on, Come on, Real Housewives. Let's be real. Let's be real. How much you getting paid anyway? Because there is no way. Anytime I want to feel better, I go Real Housewives of Orange County or wherever. Real Housewives of wherever.
Right.
Really doesn't matter the location.
You think of Jeff Bezos' ex-wife is living large. You know
who?
Jeff Bezos. You know, the Amazon.
Oh,
right.
She should be on there.
She's like a multi-billionaire, you know.
Oh, God. Yeah, she's the one giving charity money, and he's not.
I don't know really know much about her, but she certainly seems to be philanthropic in her endeavors.
Hey, good morning, Kim. Ooh, new
nice
people.
To see all these people on this Monday morning.
Hi, good morning, PJ. Well, Patty. I know it's Patty. Good morning.
So are we all? Are these mostly all KC home? Are these our homies?
Yeah, some Kim is from Virginia. Patty's from Virginia.
Okay, so we got some East Coasters.
We got the East Coast.
Okay.
So, okay, Michael Jones,
early on the West Coast for them
different than the Real Housewives? Yes, I could say I'm different. Yeah. Hey, good morning, Kathy. Thanks for joining. Oh, wow. Hi, David. Nice to see you.
Good morning. Oh, okay. There you go. I said, Kim said she's in Florida.
Yeah. Oh, Kim is in Florida. Sorry. So, well, yes.
So Kim, when are you having a giant house party to invite us all down there?
She's got a great house down in Crystal
River.
It's cold
here.
It is cold here. It's icky. Oh my goodness. Linda is on here too. Oh my goodness. Thank you guys for joining us this morning. You guys rock. Yeah, it's one of them days.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about something inspirational and happy, right? Right, okay. Bob? Right?
Do you have something inspirational and happy?
Yes. Oh. I'm alive. Live. We're up. Toes are up. Sitting up.
Wait, Kim wants to invite us down there when it warms up. Why? Is Florida cold right now?
Yeah. Right now, they just got a little cold snap.
Oh.
Well, I think it's like in the 50s or something.
I have a cousin that moved from Chicago down to Austin, Texas.
Uh-huh.
And she posted a picture this weekend of snow on her palm tree.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah.
So I wondered if Florida was having that same little cold spell, but she was like, wait a minute, I moved from Chicago to warm weather. Yes. Why do I have snow on my palm tree?
Exactly. So Linda, thanks for joining us. She's in Indiana. That's right. What part of Indiana, Linda?
Oh, yeah.
So those are some of my friends from the East Coast, and I really thank you guys for coming on.
and they're still hanging with you. So that says a lot.
I know. I miss my friends. Well, I don't know if you can tell, but I've moved to a different location in my tree. Like my tree, I'm closer to my tree.
Oh, yeah.
Have you noticed I'm in the tree kind of?
Yeah.
Well, that's because over the weekend I got a dining room table that's lower than the other one I had.
I see.
So now you're going up.
I see.
So it's a whole different part.
Well, it's a perspective shift.
Yes. So Spencer,
so we still look like you're in a mystical world, and I keep waiting for
the fairies,
pixie dust and fairies to go flying.
There are fairies in there. You just don't see them right now. Yeah, they're behind the tree. They're hiding right now. They need to hide, especially after I turned on the news. They're like, we don't want to come out there. So they're going to come spread fairy dust with you all.
Okay.
No, really. But really, I just want to bring up right away. Yes, I turned on the news. It was wrong. So just don't do it today, maybe. And pray. Just pray. That's all I have to say about that is we definitely, if there's any time in the last year, I mean, really from last March to now, I hope you've all been in your place of prayer or meditation or, definitely trying to get the inner calm, but, definitely asking God to help bless our nation and land and world in general.
I've been going through a really interesting dynamic with my book. It's interesting when you write a book that's sort of ahead of its time.
Yeah.
Because initially when it comes out, people sort of have an adverse reaction. So even though I had written it, I finished the manuscript in late 2017.
Oh, in 2017 you sat on that? What?
I
thought you wrote it last year.
It got delayed because of some editing issues and who was going to edit it and publishing. I mean, it just got caught up. And then I was out of the country for most of 2018 and 2019.
Right.
So I had written all this back then. And so the book actually didn't come out till I didn't get it published until February. So it was actually almost 2 years after I'd written most of the material. And of course, people's initial reaction to me was, I think you're being a little hysterical. I mean, it's
my gosh, if
you're
they
a little
could
over
only
the top here, you're whatever. And so, I kind of got that, there was a few people that sort of grasped it, but most people were like, I think you might be exaggerating things. And now suddenly people are coming back to me going, wow, it's all happening just like prophetic. You predicted it would,
Yeah, I don't know if you guys know, his book is really about big tech. Well,
the first part of it is.
Yeah. The first part of it is, but it's amazing how prophetically, God gave him some foresight.
What I was trying to do was warn people,
right?
What's coming. So many things that end up in the public domain have years behind the scenes of development, and the general public isn't always aware of what's going on. But even more so, they don't really understand the motives of the people that are driving a lot of things. And so what I tried to do in the book was not only talk about what will manifest, in other words, what's going to reveal itself in the public sector, but the why behind it, the worldview, the philosophy, the thinking that's driving so much of what's happening. And so it's right now, I've gotten quite a few people just in the last week that are all just kind of going, whoa, how did you know?
Yeah, if you guys would, if you don't have the book, I'm not kidding. It's an awesome book. It's very, like he said in the beginning, he's talking about it, but it's inspiring as well. So it's not just about that, but
so people know it's not a doomsday book.
No.
The reason being is that what I do in the first half of the book is set up the scenario. The second half of the book is really where my focus is, which is the fact that I believe that always in hours of crisis, God raises up people that deliver us. In other words, and Hebrew, it's called a Mashiach, which means Messiah, right? Which actually means a deliverer. And so you see all the way through the biblical narrative that in these hours of crisis, God would raise up a deliverer or deliverers, right?
Deliverers.
So one of the things that I talk about, the reason why it's called In the Company of Joseph, is Joseph was one of those people that God put his hand on. And the
Patty was asking what the name of it is in the Company of Joseph.
Right. And so what I believe is that that often in these hours of crisis where you could focus on the negative side, what I was trying to get people to look at was this is an hour for incredible innovation. There's pushback coming. There's a group of people that are trying to control things, but in this dynamic, what you're going to find is all kinds of new things develop. So there's a positive side of this as well. And that's what I want to try to focus on. And I was trying to get people to understand that when God goes to work, it's not through people that are on staff at churches necessarily. Not limited to it. In fact, most of what happens actually happens outside of church through people who aren't on staff there. And that was what I was trying to drive at the book. I was just trying to open people's perspective so that they would be receptive to hearing from God in unique contexts that they're not used to.
Yeah, it's hard for me to believe 4 years. I've been out of a church organization for 4 years. And I think back and I'm like, 4 years. Wow.
Yeah.
You know, but I still have a community of Christians, you know, that surround me. And I still have a community of, you know, people that I encounter, not realizing that they're also, you know, believers and want to come together, you know, for the greater good. So, I mean, that I feel like that's what our community here is. So, you know, thank you guys for tuning in and making this that kind of community. You know, I mean, I can literally say everybody on here is a friend, you know, that's really pretty amazing, you know, and that's what it's about. And that's what I think, you know, I just want to reframe, you know, that's what Awakenings Within is. It's within, you know, figuring out who you are, what you're supposed to do, what your commission is, but also, you know, in what community. And I feel like this is a community that we're building and I want to continue to build it. That's why I always ask you guys to share it, you know, because I feel like, you know, we're greater in numbers, right? Just in prayer, even just for praying for each other and to uplift each other. You know, that's what I hope that we do. You know, we're not here. That's why I make a joke at the very beginning about I turned on the news and then I turned it off, you know, because the news isn't going to tell you where you're at and what's going to be happening in your world. Okay. You're watching the world, but in your world, you know, how is that going to impact you? But who do you have around you? You know, what do you have to draw on, to pull on in these times? And I think it's very wise always to know what's happening and what's going on and, you know, foreseeing something like Bob in your book, you foresaw something and you're like, hey, everybody, this is what's going to happen. And it's happening like right now. And he foresaw that. And the reason he brought the book out was to warn you, to tell you. But like he said in the second part of it, he tells you how to stay encouraged, how to stay inspired, who, you know, what to draw on. So that's really the bottom, the foundation of what we're doing here in Awakenings Within.
Well, we have to recognize that crisis is opportunity. And that's sometimes difficult.
And that sounds so weird. Around,
you're
right? Like, what? Crisis is opportunity.
We're so conditioned emotionally that when we're in crisis, we kind of go into panic mode.
It's in negative connotation.
And negative, right? But what's interesting about that is that is that we tend to do that when we get self-centered, right? When our focus is about me and negative things happening to me, you know, it'll take you down into a dark place.
Yeah.
But one of the things that is fascinating for me, and I learned this at a very young age through my grandfather, and I may have told this story before, but we were studying the stock market crash when I was about 11 or 12 years old in school. And so my grandfather was a stockbroker on LaSalle Street in Chicago, and we went down to visit him. And of course, you know, being a morbid, like little 11-year-old, I wanted to know about if he saw anybody jump out of buildings, because that's what we were all told. You know, all these people were committing suicide. And he sort of laughed at me when I asked the question. And then he made this statement. He said, "What nobody will ever tell you is how many millionaires came out of the Depression."
Right.
And I was so taken back by that, because that wasn't in the narrative that we were taught in school. Anyways, he sat down and explained to me that there were all kinds of people who saw the crisis as an opportunity.
Yeah.
And because they focused on the fact that there were all these depreciating assets that they could get for pennies on the dollar, they went out and did the very opposite. Instead of trying to sell everything off, they were buying stuff.
Yeah.
And of course, 10 years later, all that real estate ended up coming back and increase, and they all became multimillionaires. Well,
really sad. They could
have had that same mentality. You know what I mean? They, you know, while everybody else is running because the house is on fire, they're going in and grabbing all the furniture. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I mean,
I just think that we have to refocus ourselves and look at it from the perspective of, well, what opportunities are in front of us?
Yes. Yes.
So there's all kinds. I mean, you could start right, you know, from a relational point of view. In other words, there's right now, there's probably a greater opportunity to love, encourage, strengthen each other than ever, right? In other words, when everything's well, people don't need help.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you think of any,
there's all this opportunity around us to be of encouragement, to love on people, to care, you know, show concern.
Yeah.
So there's incredible opportunity right now just to, you know, to be as they say, the hands, feet, and heart of Jesus. You know what I mean?
Well,
you just love on people.
Yeah, just even think about, okay, so in your family, when there's a wedding versus a funeral, even, you know, there's a different, when you get together, there's a different feeling to that, right? Like it seems like, you know, when a crisis, you know, somebody's passed or something, that people, you know, they're more raw and more emotional and more, you know, feeling and loving to one another sometimes. I mean, I know there's families that, you know, feud, but they do at weddings too. So weddings and funerals kind of flesh out how your family dynamic is, right? You know, who's happy, who isn't, you know, et cetera, et cetera. But, you know, that is the time to come together. I mean, I've had more heartfelt conversations, you know, at those celebrations, you know, both of them, you know, but it seems like we don't take the time out like we should every day of the year to tell our family members that, or, you know, our friends and that. And so it's just so important, you know, you're not promised tomorrow. So, I mean, and I'm not sounding gloomy, but it's the truth. And the truth is, you know, take every opportunity to love the people around you, and even to
where we live,
encourage people. I mean, what's the harm in that? It doesn't take a lot of effort to smile and be encouraging. It doesn't. It's more harmful.
It has a great impact on our and how we think. And what I mean by that is that when you realize that half the world lives on less than $5 a day, every moment of their life is a crisis.
Yeah.
Meaning that they live in crisis mode because they're in survival mode. Everything is about just surviving another day. when you live in a country like we do, where we have had enormous wealth, right? We tend to lose touch sometimes with spiritual things, because we live in a world that's, wealth allows us to have a lot of material possessions. We're focused on, on careers and houses and cars and clothes, and so we get distracted, right? And then I think what you're talking about is what I've seen as somebody who's come up through the ministry world, so therefore done a lot of weddings and funerals. The thing that funerals do is they bring people back to a sober reality that death is a guaranteed experience that we're all going to have. Like, we are all going to one day stand at that threshold, right? And suddenly it's like, well, then what really matters?
Right. Right.
So those, right, where even weddings, though there are, you can have crisis, they're more of a joyous, celebrative,
more of
an event, you know what I mean? And people kind of get wild and crazy and have fun by and large. There are some, but funerals have a way of, but it's because we face this,
mortality,
this mortality, exactly. And suddenly all these things that we had spent all our time pursuing, killing ourselves for, don't matter. And so what crisis tends to do, and these are the paradoxes of life, because none of us want to be in a crisis. Nobody chooses crisis.
Nobody said last year in 2020. I remember in 2020 New Year's, we were so hopeful. Oh, yay. Thank God 2019's over. Then 2020 came and we're like, oh, we didn't know. And 2020, now 2021 is coming. Yeah.
Well, and I think, I've kind of defined 2020 as the year of the face mask, but I think it was, on the inside, on the spiritual awakening side, what I saw was people reevaluating.
Yes.
I saw a lot of reevaluating. I saw people's normal completely turned upside down. They were thrown outside of their routine. Their assumptions and presumptions sort of all came to the fore, and people were suddenly going, wait a minute, what really matters to me? Like, what does really matter? Important.
So audience. Okay. So Heather said, you never know when your last day is. So audience members, please chime in. What really matters to you? Like today's Monday. On your to-do list or whatever, what is mattering to you today? So
exactly.
Put it in the comments. What is
going through what you did last year?
Yeah, this last week,
reshuffling of things. What came out? What are your top three? Like what were your top three values that you realized? Wait a minute, these are the three things that mean the most to me. They're the most precious things I have in my life. So
yes, and whew. So yes, last week. Okay, so Patty says my family and friends. Yeah, that's what matters. It's true. Those relationships is what will carry through. I mean, I think about. I talked to a friend of mine last week that I've known for years. Over 20 years. She's seen me through 2 husbands. so you think about that and you're like, wow, she really knows me, like she really knows me. And I think about her and the blessing of her friendship and including Kim on here as well. She's known me through 2 husbands too. But anyway, and I think about that relationship that we have and how precious that is. And she can really give me some good insight. Sometimes people that have known you that long, not always your family. I mean, because your family is a little skewed sometimes, because I know they think of you as from when you were this high, up. So sometimes, a friend's perspective too. But let's see. She said, my health, my walk with God, my faith. That's awesome, Patty. And then Heather, God, family, and friends. Yep.
No.
Those are, I mean, in
there's
the
a theme
end,
here that we're seeing here, which is
yes,
interesting because
yes,
what we're basically saying is we value relationships over our stuff.
yes,
Which
yeah,
is, and I think it's important to really point this out. It's like, here we are, we're in this crisis, and what we're all saying is
yes.
really the most important things in my life are the people I'm connected to.
That's the truth.
Not my house, not my car, not even my job. It's not, it's not material things, it's relational things, which
Isn't
is
it the value of
significant.
the 5? Didn't they say the 5 people that surround you the most? The value of the 5, you know, 5 people around you are what influence you, you know, and you know that the old saying, birds of a feather flock together. I mean, that's the truth. I mean, who you align with really does matter. It really does influence you. You know, you really need to keep that sacred, kind of, you know, having those 5 people who are around you to be, you know, speaking to you in a different way, you know, and I, you know, I'm a person that likes lots of friends. So I usually have more than 5, you know, and it's funny, I can categorize my friends and go, okay, this one I'm going to go to dinner with. This one I'm going to go to church with. This one. I mean, isn't it? It's a strange little thing that you pick your friends on which ones will do what. And then there's some friends that I have that surround me that I can do all of those things with, you know, that's my 5. But then I have the outer ring. So, you know, you really need to be careful who you influence, who you let influence you, you know, and that's why it's really important. I mean, I have to admit that I haven't been in the Word as much as I want to be lately. I haven't been reading the Word as much as I've been reading Facebook or the news. So, you know, that's I yesterday I went, oop, I need to shift this. This is not good, you know, because I recognized I was getting influenced by those things when I need to go back into the Word and get influenced by God's thing, you know, God's Word, what He has to say.
Yeah, because it's about perspective.
Yes.
Right. And when you go back and particularly read through the Gospels, you know, you're reacquainted with Jesus' perspective, which was, you know, his focus was on the kingdom of God or the realm of God, you know, and the unseen world, you know, the spiritual awakening side of things.
What's your favorite between Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John? Because I recognize I've always stayed in John and Luke more than Matthew and Mark.
Right.
And yesterday I decided, you know, I haven't ever given Mark much attention.
Well, you like the abbreviated version. You know?
I'm like, I think I need to go talk to Mark for a little while. So I went into Mark for a bit. So, and you're right. He goes straight at it. He doesn't he doesn't have a lot of words. He's not blah, 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 blah. He's not verbose. He just kind of like goes, bam, you know, okay, here, this is what happened. This is you know, short little chapters. I was like, why didn't I just stay in Mark all the time? He's the Cliff Note version. You're right.
Exactly. He is. He's right to the point, you know, where John is just so almost romantic.
Oh my goodness.
You know what I mean? It's like you can feel when you read John that he's like a romanticist and it's about relationships. You know what I mean? He's very relational and it's, you know, heartfelt and, you know, and of course, you know, you see that worked out. He was the only one of the 12 that ended up being there when Jesus died.
I know. And then
he did. He loved Jesus.
And so Heather says she's starting Esther today. Ooh, for a time such as this.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need it for a time such as this. We need some.
I mean, yeah, that's a whole interest.
We need somebody to influence the king right now.
Well, in one of my unpublished manuscripts, I've written a lot about Esther, you know, because there's a church version of Esther, and then there's the real version of Esther. You know?
Oh, right, exactly.
You know?
So
there's a scrubbed version. We'll just say the scrubbed version. The church tends to scrub the version, but the real life story of Esther is much more raw and real and salacious and all kinds of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. How many wives did he have?
Well, again, remember he's a king,
a lot of wives,
right? He's a ruler, so
yeah.
you have many wives, but in those days, it's, you got to remember that our Hollywood version of love and romance is a modern construct. It's not how the ancient world viewed marriage.
No, they were all about. Yeah, they were all about populating the planet.
Well, part of it, yeah. So part of it is survival and procreation. But when you were a ruler, these marriages were actually seals of peace pacts.
Yes.
In other words,
you married from the other country to bring it
you would
together.
avoid a conflict with another ruling
that's
monarch by marrying his daughter.
Yeah, so I mean, England did it.
Attack each other.
Yes, all the monarchy. Yeah, right. That's what they did. They
married. What we have all the Esthers and the little prayer groups and stuff. One of the things I point out in my manuscripts, which is the fact that Esther was actually a part of the harem.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So I think that right.
A very salacious, side to this story that it's too raw for the church world, but not for God. And that's why, I had written about this, is that the Bible, if you understand the historical context, is really like an R, and in some cases an X-rated story. But on Sunday morning, because of the audience, it gets PG'd, right? It's like it gets scrubbed. Right. And most people actually, because they're not historians or don't really understand the context, have sort of a romanticized version of it.
Yeah.
But the thing that I love about it is it's raw and real. I mean, sometimes people have a hard time identifying with the Bible because they go to church on Sunday. It gets presented to them in a very scrubbed, watered down version. And so I can't relate to these people. When I grew up Catholic, and you'd go to church, and they all were in stained glass or painted on the ceilings, and they all had like a flying saucer over their heads,
right?
And were hovering.
And it was glowing, and it was.
They were like other. Yes. You know what I mean? They were this. You were holy. You know what I mean? They were right.
They're saints.
Untouchable people, and then you become a historian like I am, and you dig and you get context, and you go, oh my God, these people are just like me. They're as broken and as dysfunctional and having to do, and Esther's story is very raw. I mean, as I said to somebody, she slept her way to the top.
Yeah. Well, John,
they get offended by that, but the truth of the matter is she was in the harem. The reason she became his wife is because he liked her better than the other ones.
Right. She was prettier or whatever. Right.
Like the fact that God would use somebody that went through that path.
Yes.
It's hard for us to get our heads around.
Well, God does. God uses God can use anybody. Right. He does use anybody. He uses them in a different context of what you think. A righteous man, that's what everybody thinks of when they think of somebody. Oh, God's going to use only the righteous. That's not true. He's always used everyone that he's created.
Well, there's a movie that came out.
Everybody is used by God if they allow it and they hear him, and it's up to them to keep their heart, focused on him, and it doesn't mean that they're perfect in any way ever, because we're not.
If you've ever seen the movie 300.
I have.
Right.
Yes.
So the movie 300 is the story of 300 Greek soldiers that sacrificed their lives to stop the Persians from invading, their city, right? That Persian leader is Esther's husband.
Oh.
The guy that's attacking, right? The guy that they've basically made to be a monster in the movie. Remember? I don't know if you go back and look at the imagery, but I mean, this guy is psycho, right?
Right.
That's Esther's husband. That's Artaxerxes.
Oh, okay.
So
I never put
again,
that together.
if you don't put these
did they mention her in it?
Historical context, you don't. So the
they don't mention Esther in it
out all the time.
In 300, they don't mention Esther though, right?
Oh no, because she's irrelevant.
And his name is Xerxes.
Xerxes, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Hey, that's another. Hey, that was good. I'm gonna have to go watch that movie again.
Again, so what I do, one of the things that I like to do, again, because I'm fascinated by history, is I actually always research. Okay, here's this biblical story. Like, what's happening around it in the rest of the world? Like, what's the context of this story? What's happening geopolitically? What's because remember the Bible is focusing on the morality, the ethics. It's some of it's historical, but it's limited. It's like you said, it's the Cliff Notes version of a much bigger story. Well, people don't go to their history books to go, oh, what's the bigger story here?
Right.
And so I'm that crazy person that actually goes, okay, so what else was happening? So, so
that's not crazy.
I think interesting though, when if you've done your tours of Israel, right?
I didn't get to go.
Oh, you didn't get to go.
That's how this show came about. I didn't get to go.
Because if you when you get a chance to go,
yes, I'm supposed
to.
The
great thing about the Middle East is it's filled with archaeology.
Oh, I know.
And they have so many museums there. And of course, most of the Christians don't go because they all want to do the
Holy Land.
They want to do the Holy Land tour. They want to go
Bethlehem to everything.
Funny story. I went in the 80s, and I had a very good friend whose very close friend was Dr. Israel Stockman, who was the top anthropologist in Israel. So I spent a week with Dr. Stockman traveling around everywhere from the Sinai all the way up to the Golan Heights, getting a cultural, historical perspective. So I was like a kid in a candy store. But anyways, he was taking us to museums where they had actual clothes from the time of Esther.
Wow.
And it explained the whole story of the Jews in Persia, right?
Right.
And so what is Persia today? You know what it is?
Iraq, right?
Iran,
right.
Right.
Iran.
People don't know this, but there's always been in Iran a huge, well, not huge, it's dwindling, but there was, for thousands of years, there were synagogues and Jews in Iran, which, was Persia.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's very interesting, the whole story of all that. But these are Esther's people.
Yes.
That have been there, for many years.
Did I ever tell you I have a 4,000-year-old piece of pottery from outside the Holy Land? Yeah. A friend of mine in Virginia is an archaeologist, and every year him and his team go over to the Holy Land, and they do it in sections, and they were thinking that they were getting around the David Temple. So anyway, he gave me a piece of pottery, which was really, a piece of it. It's not like the whole thing.
In Israel, if you want to build a house or build a road, right?
Yeah.
They send the archaeologists in first. And the reason is virtually anywhere you go in the country
is a dig.
You're going to find
some
historical artifact. And so it's cool. Just funny. Like people, there's one guy that actually has a whole museum in his house because he was trying to build another room, and they dug down and they knocked through a wall, and he finds a whole underground. Right? And the reason for this, for people that don't understand it, is like if you go to Israel and you go to the pool of Bethesda, it's down because the city was destroyed so many times that the where Jesus walked, which is 2,000 years ago, is like 100 feet underground.
Yes. Yes.
Right. And then you dig deeper and you'll get, to the Old Testament. But you have to go down through layers to get to this stuff.
Yes. I see
So
friends, they have to
anybody
go
that's
through some
building their
little
house-
door. They have to
What?
go through, they have to like bend down in some little door. I always see my friends' pictures.
Yeah.
They have to like duck down and then go down to the Church of the what's
Sepulchre, Church of the Holy Sepulchre. There
yeah.
you go.
Why is it called that?
That one.
What? Okay, what does that word mean?
Sepulchre.
Uh-huh.
The sepulchre is usually that little thing that the king would hold, like a little staff.
So why is it called that? I wonder.
I don't know.
I'm like, why isn't it just called?
Then this is the I mean, that's just terrible. I'm going to ruin everything, for you. But as Dr. Stockman said to me, the reality of it is most of these churches that are built on most of these sites aren't actually the real sites. He goes,
yes,
and you got to remember how all this happened, which was Helena, who was Constantine's mother, in the 300s, went back to Jerusalem and some of these places, which were, had all been built over, right? And asked the locals where stuff was.
Oh.
And so people just pointed out, we think that's where it was, right? So then, the Templars and all these people would come and they would build churches on top of this because, it wasn't like anybody ever found anything. It was just the local people, and I could show you pictures of Jerusalem 100 years ago. That's like a ghost town. I mean, this place, like the Israel that you see today, isn't what Israel looked like 100 years ago. I mean, even Jerusalem, hardly anybody lived there. Right. So it's kind of fascinating. So the Jewish people,
you're right. You just ruined it all.
The bank.
I'm so disillusioned now.
Industry of all of us Christians going there to these places. And
my dad brought me back a Jesus stone from right there.
Oh,
now what?
A Jesus stone.
Now I have a Jesus stone that now I don't know if it's really a Jesus stone,
right?
I don't know. It's shiny.
I know. Yeah, sorry. I hope I'm not ruining people's thing, but it's just and the reason I don't bring it up is because it's still a spiritual experience.
It is.
People go there and it's not really exactly about the sites. It's about what they mean and whatever. But it's,
Heather's calling you out.
I know.
Good job, Scott. You ruined it.
I know. I feel terrible telling people this.
He feels terrible. I can tell how terrible.
Having people on the other side of the equation, they laugh all the way to the bank. They just, and the biggest ones are, again, I'm there's a reason why Israel has an embassy in Texas, a consulate in Texas, because the biggest group of people with the most money that come are all from Texas. Nice. They have massive tours.
Well, you know what's interesting? I was going to do my live stream from the banks of the sea there. I wasn't going to do it in the Holy Land. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
I was like, I feel like that's going to be a more spiritual place for some reason. I don't know why at the time.
But now there are places like they do know where the Pool of Bethesda was. There are certain things that,
Bethlehem's still Bethlehem.
Right. But, as far as where all this stuff related to Jesus, you know what I mean?
Well, don't you want to? Well, okay, where is Jesus? He's down in my heart. Yeah.
God, now we're back to Miss Sandy's Sunday school class.
That's right.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go seeking for him around the city, but it is neat to historically, I think, oh, well, maybe. Right. And like you're saying, now Bob's ruined it for all of us.
They have uncovered, we know where there's stones from the temple, they've found David's city, on that side of the thing. But, when it comes to, all the Jesus stuff, it's all speculation. There isn't any actual archaeological proof that this was, but again, it's tradition. So it's not really about the actual site, even though people go there and faint because they think they're at the actual site. I mean, this is so bad. I mean, I hope I'm not ruining everybody's.
You ruined it. Heather even said
the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. The key to the building is owned by Muslims, and it's been owned by Muslims for 1,500 years. And the reason is the Christians were all killing each other over control, of the place. So the Sultan took everything away and gave it to. So there's been this one family for centuries who goes there every morning, and so Muslims have to open up the Christian church. Right. And then when you go there, it's hilarious because on the top of the church, there's some people living they're and they're priests from other sects who you know what I mean? And it's just so funny. Religion. Oh.
Well, just like she said, you just finding out Disney isn't really magic. Oh, that's terrible. But really, you can make it. You can. He did walk there, and he was there. But he's not there anymore.
Exactly.
But his spirit is still there.
What I tell people is go there and enjoy the experience for what it represents, but don't get fooled into thinking that these places they're taking you to are somehow holy or you're standing on revered ground, because the truth of it is it's not. It's
But what's really good about it is that you're walking through your Bible. So I think that's what's so cool about it, is getting back in touch with the Word. So you're kind of probably looking up, oh, is this where this happened? So I think it's really good at getting in touch with the Bible, just walking the Bible roads. And
well, I enjoyed it. It's like when you you walk around the city, and you can go to the like one place. I mean, this sounds weird, but it was fascinating to me because I saw the Valley of Gehenna. It's like this valley, which Jesus used to describe hell, but it was where all the refuge. It was basically the what do they call those places? It was the dump. You know what I mean?
Right.
So all the refuge from the temple, from everything, was all dumped in this one valley.
So the garden that they say is the garden isn't really the garden?
Well, it's speculative.
Oh, now I'm sad.
Nobody knows.
To be honest, I wanted to. Honestly, for me,
the trees that are there.
I wanted to go to that garden the most. Isn't that weird? But
the cool thing about it is whether it's the place or not the place. The old olive trees that are there, they're gnarly, and the bases of them are just enormous because they've been there for thousands of years. So whether it's true or not isn't really matter. It just gives you the feel, though, of what it would have been like to be in an olive grove. So if people want to put it into a modern sort of context, it was like you've been to an orchard, right? So when it talks about Jesus praying, he went to pray in an orchard.
You can go and climb in one of those olive trees, like what's his face? Zacchaeus. What's his face?
Yeah, what's his face? The dude, the little
really
guy,
short guy,
the little midget guy.
Zacchaeus. For whatever reason, in children's ministry, that story was always brought up all the time. Because he was so short and he wanted to see Jesus, so he climbed up in the tree.
He was wee.
Yeah. So.
Those little weebles. It was a little guy.
So Zacchaeus. So you guys can climb up in it. Well, probably you can't climb up in Zacchaeus
because you know why?
Why?
Like the least likely guy. I mean, again,
he was not good. He was not a good guy.
But I mean, it's like the woman at the well. I mean, these are cultural collisions. I mean, this is Jesus, like jaw dropping. right? So he like picks Zacchaeus. Like that's I mean, if you're a holy person, a religious person, a passionate, zealous Jewish person, going to eat dinner at Zacchaeus' house is the last thing you would do. Like this guy's a dweeb, right? He's like, and so I just love the story because just because of the story, but I'm sitting there with my eyes closed, imagining the shock on everybody's face.
Yes.
When Jesus said, "Hey, I'm going to dinner at your house tonight." Yep. Everybody's going, "Huh?"
Just Zacchaeus?
Like, him? It's like
exactly.
So
Heather likes that song too.
Just, I have this saying, Jesus has this way of offending the mind to reveal the heart.
Yes.
He would do this all the time. He would do
say that again. I want you to say that again. I want you to say that again.
Oh, Jesus had a way of offending the mind to reveal the heart.
Reveal the heart.
Yeah.
I think that's what we're going through right now, right?
Just to trip people up. Like he would do the totally un-PC thing.
Yes.
And watch everybody just kind of go, huh? Like have this meltdown of like, you can't do that.
You can't say that.
You can't say that. You can't do that.
You're not allowed.
You can't think that.
Right.
And people would just like have these cultural meltdowns.
Yes.
And he'd be laughing all the way because he was exposing them. So I'll give you just, I know we're closing. I'll give you just one story that'll put this into context, right? Jesus heals on the Sabbath. Right? Yes. I mean, this is utterly offensive. But what's he doing, right? Remember, he's offending to reveal the heart. So what you have is you have a whole strata of religious leaders who are telling the poor that if you come to our temple and give us money, we're going to pray because we care about you.
Yes.
Right? We care about you and we'll pray to God on your behalf just as long as you give us your money, right?
Right.
And your offerings, right?
Right.
So they created this whole cultural norm that even if you're poor, you had to come give your stuff to our little group and because we care, right? This is a typical class thing, right? So what does Jesus do? He goes, they don't really care. Not really. So I'm going to blow the lid off of this.
Oh,
I'm going to expose this, right? Yes, so what does he do? He takes some poor guy from the ghetto, right?
Yeah.
And he heals him on Sunday. And what happens? He runs back to the hood and he's like showing all his friends who have seen him this way for a very long time. And what are all the poor doing? It's high fives, baby. It's party time. They're all rejoicing, right? Because their buddies, like they're relational, right? They care about it. They genuinely care about it. So they're happy. And what do you see? You see all these self-righteous religious people running down into the gutter going, you can't do that. Right. You broke the rules. And suddenly all the poor people are going, wait a minute. You don't really care about us.
Right.
If you cared about us, you'd be here celebrating with us that our friend is well.
Yeah.
Right. And so Jesus had this way of just poking people, you know what I mean? And that's what he did. He exposed the hearts of the self-righteous religious people who actually didn't care. They said all the right stuff.
If you say that again,
ceremonial,
that's what's happening right now. Is those people are getting exposed right now, with those big mega churches and what have you, I mean,
again, we forget. I mean, and again, I guess I'm going to keep offending people today. But
you already blew our Jerusalem story out. So oh my gosh, the Holy Land is now no longer.
Understand the context.
Yes.
Of Jesus and the New Testament. If Jesus came back, he would not be visiting our suburban churches. He would be down in the ghetto, right?
Yes.
On the street.
Yes.
Healing and touching the drug addicts, the prostitutes, the mentally ill, and sitting on the side and gathering crowds and sharing his freeing worldview.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
and then everybody from the burbs would be coming down there going, wait a minute.
Why is he here? Right.
Why
Are you
Don't you understand?
right?
We got a church in Independence with a
Right.
throne on it waiting
Right.
for your return. You're supposed to be
Right.
sitting on that.
Right. I used to so my ex was in a band, and so we used to go to bars on the weekends because he played there. And I would go on a Friday and a Saturday, and then, I was a pastor at one time on a Sunday. And so people would be like, okay, isn't that a conflict? And I'm like, no, those are the people that I said, there's more people that I can talk to and fellowship with and share the good news to in that place than anywhere else. I can't do it in the church. You guys are already here.
Right.
I have to go outside of the church. Now, there can be a conflict in that if that atmosphere influences you and your behavior. Now, that's a whole different story. If you're going there and you're having a heart for it, and you're not, do as the Romans do, you know what I'm saying? So,
Right.
So it's kind of like it was a conflict, and it was a conflict for people to think about it too. They would be like, they would judge me on it. They'd be like, why are you going in that place? And I'm like, that's where the people are.
Well, again,
those are the people.
Really clear. He goes, I didn't come for the well.
Right.
So the reason why Jesus wouldn't come to our suburban churches is because we got it. They're like finely oiled machines, and they're filled with people who have all this knowledge. Like he would say, you don't need me. You already got it figured out. He goes, I came for the screw ups.
Right.
Like I came for the people that are lost. Like they don't know.
Exactly.
And that's one of the things that's hard for us sometimes to get our head around. And that's what confused the religious leaders of his time, because they're trying to figure out, well, wait a minute, if you're this Messiah, this Mashiach, right? Well, you're supposed to be one of us, you know, in this elite status, rallying, right? And you're like down there with all these losers. Right.
But you do have
what
to
ends up happening is Jesus gets this moniker.
Yes.
You're a friend of sinners.
Yes.
As though that's like a bad thing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's Jesus, the friend of sinners, right?
Yeah.
And they're looking at that as negative. And of course, when you understand Jesus' heart, he's going, thank you. That's a compliment.
Right. But just remember, like, I was talking about, because I'm not Jesus and I went in those places, I could get influenced. So you have to be really careful about that. You really have to go in. You have to stay prayed up. You have to have the armor of God on, Ephesians 6:10, you got to put it on, you got to keep it on, and you can't get influenced. I mean, I didn't stay on that path all the time, and because I'm human, so I'm just saying that, to say, hey, listen, I didn't always do the right thing.
Well, my main reason in bringing this up is, one of my favorite words is perspectives. Yeah. And it's important when you're getting back to what you were originally talking about, which is reading the scriptures, that you understand the perspective of what's happening there, because often in the church world, it gets all scrubbed. You know what I mean? It gets sort of whitewashed and cleaned up. But it's the world that Jesus is interacting with. It's raw and real and filled with brokenness.
Yes.
And so I think a lot of times, many of our listeners, I think the reason where we are, not the reason, but one of the places where we draw the most towards God is when we come in touch with our own brokenness, and we realize, we're really not much different than the drug addict.
We're not.
In fact, what's ironic to me is I've lived in this world of highly successful people on the outside, athletes and people in the arts and entertainment world and corporate executive, right? And they all struggle with some of the same addictions and same broken families, and so even though they have the facade of success, they're as broken and as needy as anyone else. I think one of the things that I have always loved was a phrase I heard years ago, which is this: the ground is level at the foot of the cross.
Yes, I love that too.
Right?
Yes.
Rich or poor,
Yes.
famous or infamous, doesn't matter.
The
At
ground is level at the foot of the cross. I
all
like
the same.
Yes.
We're all at that same level.
And that's true. And I just want to say, reciting scripture and living scripture is a different thing. Yeah. I was taught to, memorize scripture, this and that. And the reason that you memorize it is for it to be in your heart. So you can recite it later. So you can hear it in your head later. I mean, there is a purpose in it. However, if that's all you're going to do is recite scripture, but not live it, it's a whole different thing. I'm terrible about remembering a scripture all the way through. I miss a word or, that kind of thing. I have to have it like right there, but I understand what the scripture means and how it's been sown in my heart, so and it comes out in a different way. It comes out more relational versus, speaking it out. So
I think, and I have some things this week I'll be posting on my Facebook page about it. But one of the things that you begin to discover as you really read through the good news, the Gospels, is that Jesus' whole way of teaching and is relational.
It's relational,
right? His classroom was a constant field trip.
That's right. He was never in one place or in one building for a long period of time. And that's why, that I like that church with no walls. Church with no walls is correct. It feels correct to me. And to maintain a building is like a burden. But to maintain your Christian heart is not.
Right.
The burden is a building. The building is a burden. The building that we had in our church had leaks in it, and we were constantly patching it up, and it almost was symbolic of our Christian hearts, right? We're constantly patching it up. Water was still coming in, and it was, we just couldn't seem to find the leak, and it was like the physical building became a burden. But the servant people that came in to help patch it up, it really influenced them. It was so interesting. I think of it now metaphorically, and I'm like, oh wow, that was pretty cool. God used that to get people in the building to be servants who felt like they weren't being servants elsewhere. You see? And so it gave them a purpose. And I was like, oh, I got it now. Like before, it was like, the people just came in to pray or whatever. But these people who wouldn't have come into the building came into the building because that's how they knew how to help and have purpose. And it was just the coolest thing now that I see it. And I'm like, that's how God got them in the building. Well, so it's pretty cool. You never know what he's doing.
We're running over time here. So I'll just
I'm sorry.
With this last comment, which was the fact that the early Christian community was known as the Way. The reason it was the Way was because Christianity in its infancy was a way of life.
Yes.
It wasn't about going to a facility. It wasn't about theology. It wasn't about orthodoxy and ritual and ceremony. It was the way. It was the way we love and interact.
Yeah.
So,
and some people love and interact by doing something for another, repairing something, right?
Exactly.
Everybody's got their own gifts. So whatever your gift is this week, use it today and tomorrow and the rest of the week until I see you on Thursday. Mm-hmm. So, all right. Thank you guys for joining us. I know we did go over, and whoever there was a solid 4 on here today, and I thank you, solid 4, whoever you are. And we thank you. And Heather, it was good to see you all. Kim, Patty, all of you. And I hope you have a fantastic Monday. Make the most of it. And don't turn on the news. And we love you. Thank you for joining us. Everyone. Bye. Thanks, Bob.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, you as well.